Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Have you ever experienced something that felt paranormal, but probably has a rational explanation, even if you can't put it together? I'll start. Used to go for walks late at night, talking like 1 or 3 a.m. One summer night when I was on my way home, maybe a block away, passing a cul-de-sac down the street from me. Start to hear what sounds like birds chirping, like hundreds of birds, all chattering, chirping, whistling, peeping. Sounds like it's coming from the cul-de-sac. The wind suddenly picks up like crazy. Trees jostling, leaves flying. Feel compelled to walk towards it, kind of mystified, curious. As I'm walking into the street to the cul-de-sac, suddenly have an overpowering sense of fear. I feel like I will definitely die if I continue where I'm going. Spin around and sprint the rest of the way home. Walked that way many times, but it never happened again.
Okay, so what was your rational explanation for what happened? Some kind of machine that sounded weird because it was muffled?
I mean, it could have just been a series of odd coincidences and my own paranoia. Maybe. Thing is, if I knew for a fact it was something paranormal, I'd have no answer for what it was beyond that it was something unnatural.
Perhaps it was an extraterrestrial that was mimicking the sounds of birds to bait you into capture. It never happened again, because they were able to attain prey.
The most important thing when experiencing the unexplainable is to not jump to conclusions. Usually these are one-off events, and as such, any aspect of them could be coincidental. Just remember it as it happened. Don't dismiss it as your imagination, but also don't try to make it fit any paradigm.
Went camping as a child around 9 or 10 years old, quite a distance from home for a semi-family reunion in northern Arizona. The trip was super fun. On the first night I need to pee, and it's really late past midnight after everyone is asleep. Mom has Uncle walk me into the pitch-black woods with a flashlight. We reach a spot and he points ahead and tells me to go for it. So I step forward about 20 feet or so, and while nervous with how utterly dark it is, try to piss. Start going, and nearing the end I start hearing a heavy breathing directly in front of me. No footsteps or rustling or anything, just heavy breathing. My uncle, who's still several feet behind to give privacy, clearly hears it too, and mumbles, "What?" then turns the flashlight and points it in my direction. Directly in front of me, less than 2 feet away, is a massive full-grown adult male elk. His face is almost level with mine, but slightly higher. I'm too stunned to even process what's happening and hear my uncle say, "Just step backwards very slowly." I don't say a word and do as I'm told, until I feel his hand touch my shoulder. He pulls me and starts speed walking while watching the elk, who never stops staring but otherwise doesn't move at all, except the heavy breaths. Turn the flashlight to find where to go and turn to walk. Hear a loud rustling sound. Flashlight back to elk and he's completely gone. We ran back to camp with our hearts slamming in our chests, completely shocked by what happened. The next day we laughed and told the story all day, still amazed at what happened, but glad it all was okay. Nighttime comes. That night, starting around 11 or 12, we hear a woman screaming at the top of her lungs from what seems like somewhere not too far away, but far enough to be unable to pinpoint. Scream sounds like crying, pleading, and pure terror. The kind you would imagine would shred your lungs and that you could only produce in a crisis. The scream persists for hours, and even has a distinct human cadence. Literally everyone is awake. Around 12 to 15 families, all talking through tents trying to figure out what's going on. Family talks about one leaving to get a ranger, but this is a secluded spot, and while exploring all around during the day, we didn't see anyone else around at all, so we wouldn't even know where to send them. Hours go by with the scream happening, sometimes stopping for 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes 5, only to continue. Near the end, it sounds like it's getting weaker, more like a mourning howl, but still distinctly like a regular woman. Finally vanishes in the middle of night. Next day, the family decides we're done and we pack it up. Went back since, Mogollon Rim, went in the region, but never had anything weird happen.
Man, you all just sat there and went back to sleep without doing anything about it or trying to locate what that was? Also, did you ever try and follow up on anything that happened in that area, disappearances, etc., or bother to inform a ranger or something? Cool story, but WTF.
I was like 9 or 10. I suppose they were too worried due to how messed up sounding the screams were. We went looking for nearby campers the next morning and didn't find anyone nearby at all. No signs of any camps or anything either. My family, in their attempt to rationalize it, somehow came to the conclusion it must have been some drug addict or something. You know, those random middle-of-the-nowhere woods junkies you hear about? We checked papers and stuff for weeks afterwards to see if anything popped up in the area and never saw anything.
Apparently, mountain lions in heat can sound like screaming women. But if you also heard crying and pleading, that rules that out.
I've heard that about other animals as well, and the adults even talked about it, but we're all convinced, especially uncles, that it was distinctly human. Even though no one ever heard any speech or anything, the noises were all familiar enough, if that makes sense. More like screams with inflection, so like moans and guttural cries.
Be me, 16. I lived near the woods alone with my dad. Often went out playing there at a small creek in a mid-size-ish clearing. Put crayfish traps there, sometimes make a fire. One day, a friend, let's call him G, and I decided to camp as a celebration to drink beer, legal in my country at that age, and grill. We arrived at noon. Dad helped bring our stuff. Dad leaves and we start to set up camp, throw rocks, and in general just chill. At one point we make a fire and we're both sitting in a chair waiting for it to get bigger and we're talking. While talking, I see something over the other side of the small stream near tall grass. It's shiny, like metal but not polished chrome. It's a very rough metal, like those New Year lead molts, pick related, and it looks like a cap-small dome peeking out the tall grass, the trees. Before I can say anything, it stands up just a tiny bit, and underneath that dome is some kind of dark, shadowy black head. Immediately, my eyes start watering and I feel uncomfortable. I say, "Hey, what is that?" in my language. As soon as I say that, my head starts buzzing, very metallic. I never felt anything like this. It's like being at the dentist, but the vibration is in my head and my throat feels numb. Friends suddenly stood up. He was across from me, and asked me if there's anything with me since I'm crying. The moment I look at him and look back, the thing is gone and coldness washes over me with sweat, literally crying without control, feeling very embarrassed. Calm down at one point, feeling a lot more rational now. Tell friend everything, apparently from his POV. I looked behind him, randomly started to cry and never said anything. Felt like 5 minutes to me instead of just a moment. Tell him I feel really uncomfortable being here. Call my dad to get us. And he feels I'm a wuss and our friendship got a bit rocky from that. I never went back to that clearing since then, as I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Be me, 8-ish years old. Hanging with a neighbor kid in my room. Playing Luigi's Mansion. We both hear a sound the Game Boy Horror makes when near a boo. Not in-game, but somewhere else on the second floor. Bro, did you hear that? Mute TV to listen. Sure enough to hear it again. Definitely not the game. Sounds like it's coming from the parents' room. Hear it one more time. Look all around but see nothing. Don't hear it again. Nobody else in the house besides us. It makes absolutely no sense. It sounded exactly like the in-game sound effect, and we both heard it. One of those things that you'd think has to have some explanation, but you can't think of any. Hanging out with Dad. In the basement, watching spoopy YouTube videos on the TV. The basement has Christmas lights hanging around the room, where the wall meets the ceiling. The end of the lights hangs down the wall to plug into the outlet. Not plugged in right now, just hanging there. The dangling end of the lights jumps up into the air, as if someone scooped it up and tossed it a couple feet up. We both look like WTF. No explanation for it. We just keep chilling. It doesn't happen again. Our first thought was our cats running around and knocking into things, but they weren't down there at the time and never really run around down there anyway. There certainly wasn't any wind or a fan on that could have blown them. Makes zero sense. A couple other things have happened in that basement, such as a single tap on one of my drums. Pretty sure nothing fell from the ceiling onto them. Be me, chilling in the same basement. Again, watching shit on the TV with the old man. Corner of my eye, see something move. Immediately followed by a thud on the carpet. A heavy cast iron pot was lifted off the mini fridge and dropped onto the floor. Just the pot, not the lid. The lid was still on top of the fridge. Lid that is always kept on the pot. Somehow, the lid was lifted off, pot was dropped to the floor, and the lid was put back down on top of the fridge. Definitely the most significant weird event that has happened in that house. That was the spot where I had always kept that pot. It wasn't haphazardly placed there where it could fall off or anything.
Be me. Used to be a delivery driver for Pizza Hut. I closed on the weekends for the most part, just myself, one other driver and the shift manager after the customer service representatives leave. Had to take a last-minute order. The manager was being a huge punk the whole night. The other driver was some asshole who shit-talked me behind my back, and my car's ignition lock was being a pain in the ass. Needless to say, I was pretty stressed that night. Finally got the store closed midnight. The manager was incredibly slow. Both of my co-workers leave, but my ignition lock refuses to budge. I'm stuck with my door open for 15 or 20 minutes on a hot and humid summer night and getting seriously frustrated. Finally unlocks, and I start my car. For some reason, I decide to look over to my right. I caught a glimpse of a young and petite blonde girl with shoulder-length hair in what looks like a white sundress retracted into the alleyway behind the building. It looked as if she had been spying on me from around the corner of the building, and that she knew I had caught her. It was almost playful how she moved, though. Almost flirty in a sense, where she had almost intended to be seen. WTF.jpg. I stared at the spot for maybe 10 seconds before I put it in reverse and drove across the parking lot to look down the alleyway. There's a blue dumpster a few feet behind the corner that obscures a little bit of the alleyway. Have my hand on my handgun in the center console in case this is a mugging. I'm in a mood, so I have no desire to mess around with this. Not even scared, just plain tired. Screw this, I'm going home. Drive home without incident. It's anticlimactic and boring, and maybe I hallucinated it. Either way, I catch myself thinking about it from time to time, and I can't help but wonder what I would have seen had I gone down that alley. Pick related, by the way.
Be with friends, late at night and searching for some place to eat. Found some McDonald's that closes at 4 a.m. Nearly empty. Asked our stuff and got on the second floor. Chatting or whatever until it came about sympathetic magic. Talking about how strangely common it is here. Reading random stuff on the internet and laughing. Until we got on some goofy ebook about ritual to get your loved one. Still laughing about its language. The poor JPEG images on the PDF. Until it started getting actually bizarre. Friend reading started denying to read out loud and just kept jumping pages. Blasphemous invocations and nasty stuff. At the same time the first obscure thing got on, we heard a noise from the speaker just above us on the ceiling. A bit of static or radio tuning. Vanish. Whatever. I kept reading. Again, same sound, just some seconds, until the point where my friend just stopped reading at all, just skipping pages. I asked what was it. Take the phone, it was just at the moment I read something sexually related. A deafening noise just blasted from the speaker, probably max volume it could take. At first it actually sounded like a scream, then some siren. Then I could figure out it was some kind of hard techno music. Would be somewhat disturbing on a regular volume, but it was blasting our ears. We just run from there. As I was getting out, I just saw one employee that was in a dark room, that birthday space, probably on its break time, laughing at us. The entrance door was locked. I saw what I supposed was the manager, but couldn't fully understand him. The exit is to the other side, gone to the side of our car in the parking lot. Music kept playing for some time. Friend deleted the ebook from his library. I can imagine they did it to get rid of the last customers. But the thing is, It kept playing for some time, so they were just torturing themselves. Most probably a coincidence, but a freaking bizarre one.
This was just a couple days ago. Be me walking up the mountain in the woods. I am all alone, and nobody is parked or walking on the trail in sight. I get to the top of the mountain and go out towards the power lines that go up the mountain in a patch where the trees are cut out. I get a beautiful view of the Pennsylvania mountain ranges and decide to go home, after I feel like I'm no longer alone and being watched. I walk back onto the main trail, and as I do, I see a cleaned deer leg bone with another joint attached, still all the flesh chewed off. I stop and look in a bit of shock, since I am very sure it wasn't just on the trail when I went to check out the top of the mountain view. I normally look down a lot when I walk because this trail is full of rocks and roots, and I don't want to get tripped. I feel this overwhelming sense that I am being watched and not welcome. I start to examine the bone closer, but the sense becomes overwhelming to the point where I roar as loud as I can into the direction I feel the danger sense is coming from, back by the power lines. I tighten my belt to the third loop and book it as fast as I possibly can down the trail back to my home out of there. I still feel the feeling of being stalked and watched behind me, and start wondering if it's a bear or something. I'm a pretty tall guy and a fast hiker, so I'm making really good time down the mountain, but keep feeling eerie and turning around to look behind me. All of a sudden, a guy just appears behind me to my right, stopping me dead in my tracks. I say, "Jesus Christ, where did you come from?" Because I was just at the top of the mountain, and this guy was nowhere up there, and he must have been moving really fast to come up upon me like that. For some reason, he just stares at me and says nothing for a good 3 or 5 seconds before slyly answering in a very hushes weird tone, "Up there." He sort of glides past me, and as he does, I swear the sense of danger and feeling of being stalked followed. He vanished up ahead.
I remember this happening very well, as I definitely wasn't dreaming. Be me walking down Market Street in San Francisco one Sunday morning. That is, no one really there. A 30-something Indian guy with longish hair but no facial hair waves at me from across the street, starts walking towards me. Oh great, here comes a beggar. Man starts telling me about his ancient yogic lineage and shows me a black and white picture of his clan. I regret I wasn't paying too much attention at this point, as I was waiting for him to get to his pitch. Asks me to play a game with him where if I have something of significance, I'll give him what he wants. Okay. He hands me a crumpled saffron, or perhaps it was yellow, piece of paper. Go on, read it. Its last 4 digits of my social security on it. He's smiling at me saying, "I was right, wasn't I?" Me. "That's a very cool trick you have there, so what do you want?" Him. "Give me $20. Me. "I really need that 20. Will you take 5? Him. "Okay, that's good enough." Walks off. He vanished. To this day, it's still the most irrational thing that has ever happened in my life, though if one gives a really convoluted explanation. That is to say, he was following me around for months and learning all my info just for this opportune moment on this day. I randomly walked down Market Street. Then I suppose it is possible. For a precise location. This happened approximate to the Hobart Building, about 2nd and Market.
I'd say you ran into a trickster, Jin, something like that. You did good to satisfy him. $5 to not be fucked with is worth it. It's the best explanation and brings a bit of magic into your life. Perhaps you should learn to embellish a bit and leave it a little more open-ended.
I would definitely be willing to listen to possible explanations for this, since it's baffled me since it happened. No history of experiencing paranormal activity. Be me staying in a small hotel about 100 years old off the beaten path. As far as I can research, there is no history of any past activity or bad happenings. 0 bad vibes, just feels like a storied building with some character. Around 3 or 4 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom. Once I finish, I get back in bed and start rearranging the pillows and blankets to try to get comfortable, since I don't sleep well in hotel beds. This is important because I chalk up most of the spooky skeletons appearing in Anand's room to sleep paralysis, which I am pretty accustomed to since I used to intentionally lucid dream. Not the case here. I was 100% awake and actively moving around both before and after this happened, so sleep paralysis or dreaming is not a reasonable explanation.
I did not fall asleep and kept the lights on until morning after this occurred. Around this time, I heard the very distinct sound of high heels clicking on the hardwood floor of the room, not far away, but in my room. It was easy to track the path from the door, which was to the left of my bed, to the center of the room where my bed was located. The clicking stopped, and then the far right corner of my bed visibly depressed. I could see the mattress and sheets being pressed down. Maybe 10 or 20 seconds later, the bed went back to normal, and the clicking started again. It seemed to move around the room slightly, and then fade off toward the door, but with less intentional direction than before. There was no figure, shadow, or anything like that. No negative feelings during the experience. If someone or something was there, they didn't care or notice. I can excuse the footsteps with an old building, but I've got nothing on seeing my bed move.
I had this dream a few nights ago which I lived 3 whole days. Be me. Be really bored one day and decide to go in a woods alone. While in the woods, I hear a strange rustling following. Hear it start only when I begin moving. I know it's not the sound of my own footsteps because it has a 5 or 10 second delay from when I stop moving and start moving. Get freaked out. Speed walk home. A strange noise is still behind me, 100 or so meters away from the main road. Start sprinting. Keep running even after coming out of the woods, reach the house. Safety.png. Fast forward a few weeks. Be in garden planting vegetables and shit. Out of nowhere, hear someone scream, "Hey, Anon!" Bolt upright. See nobody. Go inside and ask my parents if they called me. Both say no. Whatever.jpg. Fast forward to that night. Have a dream. In my dream, I woke up in my bed, go outside, go on the street. On the street, I see a girl. She is coming from the road that leads to the forest. Say hi to her. She waves back. Ask her who she is. I don't know if she said anything because I don't remember her name. Long story short, she introduces herself and I introduce myself. Turns out she has a heart problem. There is a black circle with blue accents on her chest about the size of 1/4 and 2 centimeters thick. She says she has to charge that up every night or else she will die. Feels bad, man.gif. The first dream day passes and I wake up again in my bed, go outside again and meet her. She's in front of my house. She is talking with my parents. My parents ask her who she is, where she is from, etc. I can't remember her answers. We go on a walk together. We talk about life and shit. Tell her about my problems, and she tells me about hers. Third dream day. I meet her again in front of my house. She tells me her heart device won't charge. Device displays a 5% sign. Idea.mp3. Hey, let me charge it for you at my house. She smiles and says, thanks, Anon. We go inside my house and she takes off her device. I place the device to charge on my nightstand. I put a movie on while we wait for the device to charge. After some time, we started cuddling on the couch. The movie ends. Look at the clock. It's 11:30 p.m. Oh God, it's this late. I gotta go home before my parents get mad. She rushes out the door, but I stop her. Hey, you forgot your device. Out of nowhere, she just stops and gives me a sad stare as she drops down her arms by her sides. It's okay, Anon. I can leave it here overnight if that's okay. I say, of course it is. Thanks for being such a good friend, Anon. I can't wait to see you again. As she finished her sentence, she leaps forward and hugs me. I hug her back. After a few minutes, we stop hugging and she goes home. Go to sleep, now wake up in the real world. I thought to myself, I can't wait to see her again. As I sit there, I slowly realize that she isn't real. She never existed. No one like her ever lived in my village. I fell in love with a girl who isn't real. Now I don't know what any of this means. If any of you have some explanation for what happened, please tell me. And if you guys have any other questions, I will try my best to reply to them.
Dreams are weird, but if you want my interpretation, you met with a spirit or demon, you got tricked to letting them in your house, aka your subconscious, they leached energy off you. The movie was probably how they got you so confused and in love, when in reality you were being abused and tortured, so it created a long-lasting, draining temporal leak that they can forever feed on until the love feeling wears off.
over holidays with grandparents. Late night gaming on the laptop because there's nothing else to do. Hear clanging in the bathroom. Ignore it and just focus on the game. Suddenly, for whatever reason, I pause. I just close my laptop and freeze. Something whispers my name, and it has the voice of my father. I could hear it perfectly, even through the windows. Turn around, nothing there. I hear clanging once again in the bathroom. Go to bed instantly. Ask my dad the next morning if he told me to go to bed and said he slept the whole night and didn't even go to the toilet. Either my dad was being a massive troll whilst going for a late night piss, or I'm slightly schizo and had an episode whilst my grandparents' cat was walking about. Or it's a trolling spirit that went for a ghost piss and decided to harass a 9-year-old.
I consider aliens and UFOs paranormal. Outside smoking cigs with bro looking at the stars. Tell him we should concentrate on one and both send energy to it for fun. We can't agree on a star too many, so I say screw it. Let's just do our thing. Point at a star and say, hi. I yell at bro and told him it got brighter for a second. He starts freaking out, yelling it's getting bigger. Sure enough, in no time it's a huge glowing white-yellow light floating right outside our fence area above the trees. I start walking backwards, reaching for the door to nope out of there. Bro grabs my hand and forces me to walk with him towards the object. I start hearing running outside the fence, like human size running 3 or 4 of them. I yell, stop it, and start pulling bro back to the house. We walk into the house and immediately go to our rooms and go straight to sleep without mentioning anything, like in some type of trance. See him in the kitchen in the morning, just sitting there staring into space. Did that happen? Exactly what do you think happened? He described it exactly as I remember. Days later, he tells me that night he had a dream that aliens were in the house and they floated us outside and took us somewhere and was too scared to even mention it.
Be me, about 2:30 a.m., admittedly high on about 50 to 75 milligrams of edibles, but I have never hallucinated on them before or after this event. Coming out of my room to go to the kitchen and grab a snack 'cause munchies. I step onto the threshold between my hallway and my kitchen. Immediately see a shadow cast from the light fixture above the sink and onto the floor a couple feet from my fridge. All I can see is the legs. Upper body is obscured by the island in the center of the room. Island has shit stacked up high enough to block my view of anyone in front of the fridge at the time. Whoever it is scurries in the direction of the sink. Footsteps clear as day. Could even feel the vibrations through the floor. Plant holder table thing next to the fridge that my mom bought recently moves like someone accidentally bumped into it. Don't see anyone near the sink. At first I think it's my dad or one of my 2 brothers trying to prank me and jump scare me by ducking down under the island. I make my way around the island, peek around the corner quickly to catch whoever it is before they can jump out. Nothing there. WTF.jpg. Check rooms where dad and older bro sleep. Both snoring, dead asleep. Check little bro's room, only to find him asleep as well. Spooked, but I'm high, so I go back to my room and keep playing Vidya. Eventually fall asleep. Next morning I tell my family what happened. Mom tells me she woke up around the time I saw the shadow thing. Tells me she heard the footsteps, but that she thought it was me. I'm not sure what to make of it. I've always felt a little unnerved about being in my kitchen at night. Another experience I have had in there was while I was high again and felt like something shoved me towards the computer chair in the corner. My vision darkened and my breathing felt labored, but I just chalked that one up to an anxiety attack.
B7. Play Bloody Mary at cousin's haunted house. The wind suddenly picks up after we say the phrase. Hear thumping noises on walls. Start hearing thumping noises on the floor. A strong whistling sound starts. This lasts for over 5 minutes. My cousins and I started whining because we're scared and the only adult in the house walked to the corner store. Aunt gets home from the store. Wind and thumping seem to immediately stop in conjunction with Aunt opening the door to the house. Now that I'm grown, I think it just became windy outside and we overreacted.
Be me driving home, about to take a curve that I always take going this route. See a fire truck and bicycle on the ground. Feel death staring at me as I look at the crash site. take alternate route home for entire week afterwards, feel death around one night at around 10:30 p.m. An electronic deadbolt at the front door makes electronic sounds as if someone is trying to unlock the door. I have a home alarm on and cameras installed everywhere outside. Check cameras, doorbell cam, nothing. Cameras start recording, receive clips of nothing. A few nights later, roughly around the same time as the night before, watching TV, a black cat is sitting outside my French doors, staring at me, turning on lights and trying to scare it away. It does not waver. Leave for Arizona days later, hoping to shake the feeling of death over me. Feeling better, but still feel the weight over me. About to Sedona for Phoenix, and I had a feeling that now was not the time, so I decided we're going to stay back in Sedona and just leave when it's actually time to check out. I like to leave early on road trips. On the drive to Phoenix, hit a strip of downpour and it's getting really hard to see while driving. I feel death. It's here. I slow down. Have my wife and kids in the car. Tell everyone to scan the roads for me until it stops raining. Look to the side of the road. A family car is flipped and the entire top flattened. Didn't see anyone. About 15 feet forward, a pickup truck was in the embankment. Airbags deployed. Front was completely smashed in. No sign of anyone. Look at wife. That was supposed to be us.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.